11th May 2022, 2:54 p.m. Literary analysis of Inferno of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Canto 1, stanzas 19, 20, 21, 22. She brought upon me so much heaviness, that the affright that from her aspect came, by hope relinquished of the height. The writers stating an admittance at the challenge and more severe confrontation with wider human demand, human subsistential, popular subsistential and guidant demand. He would have despite his designation to lead, despite his designation and appointment role to stand as guide, had faltered or seen some of his resolve diminished by the task before him. It is also to note that he would have qualified the affright in prior stanzas as less visceral fear in his experience, but more sense of dread from the prospect of the task and the empathetic observation of seeing the effect of task of being closely observant of seeing lack of furthering the capacity to offer consolation or support within, or consolation guide onto task, or supportive teachings. As it had affected populace. Similarly, that is to state that he had not this. It is a sense of a common sense of dread for a person unable to do an action that otherwise would go unfilled if they had not. But the onus seemed to weigh heavily, and sense of dread and disheartenment and despondence that may have come out, and the degree of despondence that may have come out of it would have been would be described as the primary withholdings, or primary incapacitation that he would have experienced. And he does humbly note, I hope through the use of the word relinquished rather than conceded, a degree of self-acknowledgement and humility to his capacity to achieve of such with greater dedication. In the same sense, he is also noting relinquishment and acknowledgement of limited capacity at which he believed would have been, at which he may have sensed or succumbed to the belief that would have been the primary limiter of his capability at the time and effectability and ultimately a main factor toward the outcome. And as he who willingly acquires, and the time comes that causes him to lose, who weeps in all his thoughts and is despondent. Right next line. Those who willingly acquire is a notance, a general speech to persons who would work towards assuming of authority and knowledge offer and offerability of knowledge guide or counsel. As well as speaking more closely to life than seeking of any responsive adverse of a thing that might be desired or strive towards, such as a companionship and prior notance of the challenge of human companionship by the overarching analogy of the she-wolf in the prior stanza. As well as previous stanzas' notation of more complex description of status within life. And also, if yet unyet noted, the she-wolf would reveal. The time comes that causes him to lose. It's a citation of it's a suggestion of likely inevitabilities, but a notance that it may not by the use of the word and, or the entire statement then being this entire stanza being a conjecture about an aspect of response to adversity, the aspect of resolve of those who direct themselves onto challenge, yet diminish in capacity at time, diminish in their inactability through it, or at the challenge to come. Root in all his thoughts and is despondent. In the morning, simultaneously a mourning for the effect of the adversity, which is peacefully and mercifully noting of welcome, as well as conjecting an awareness that of a willing acquitter, of willing acquisition. Some level is an acceptance of the responsibility to attempt weathering, to attempt upholdance of oneself, or the responsibilities more simply, or further, as suggested by prior stanza, the magnitudinous concept and task of being offerant of support on the more existential matters of a life. That one within position may be tasked with, whether that be seeking of counseling of bereavement, guide toward education, guide toward or away from career opportunes, familial establishment and growth. Ascribance onto care or ownership of property or persons, and more simply the encountering with the prospect of learning and speaking with a sense of taskment and inspirational intent, whilst using materials and perspectives that are oft written in tellings with tragedies. To re-emphasize here simultaneously, noting that it happens, noting that it's acceptable, speaking to the challenges of the learning institutions at the time and the understandings available at the time within the present social circumstances of action. With relevance to the learnings and the teachings, and a wider invitation onto perspective for all aspects of life, which can bringeth forth despondence, or disheartenment, or that may come from the more dreadful aspects of ongoings or affairs. And such made me that beast without in peace, which coming on against me by degrees thrust me back thither, where the sun is silent. Exclaiming a sense of progression of the despondence and the dread into further self-inhibition and restriction. The point where he too saw himself as being likenable to his challenged or understanding of, or being component or party to the understanding of an existential limitation of growing life mortal that applies transiently to all those who must experience from unexperienced. And the potential demand and the awareness of and the componentiation of some level of inadequacies or shortcomings or imperfections even, that would dismay onto task and dismay of and free of hope. But free of hope, likened to the she-wolf. But he also uses the Newton's birth of a self-citation of the beast to invite a reminder that these things can be treated for despite their adversity and withholdance and restriction. As a site for growth resolve through tasking, or bolstering of conviction onto action. Or more simply, the challenges and depressive aspect can be seen as motivator, and it is a challenge to take it such, because use of the term beast itself notes that in doing so it is offerant of strengthly good but often greatly demanding, or often depleting. And create a sense of destitution. Is likened to the lion, the lone lion that heads a pack, that heads a pride, secure but solitary, and always at duty. It's coming against me by degrees. And he again notes the various levels at which one would experience the effects of challenge and great adversity being placed on oneself, and how these challenges affect throughout the varied aspects of life, aspects of an experiencing, and the effects not being isolated to the active tasking of the challenge, but to the livings outside of it, the livings through it, and even the livings that can be entirely foreign seem to be affected by the overarching depletion or destitution onto task. Also likenable in a state to connection with emotion, as one would feel challenge to grovidly present themselves and command themselves unto offerance and beneficence and impassionedness. With the beast then being simultaneously the drive, that is had within a love. And the progressive challenge of meeting a companions, of matching soul incrementally. The companion has its various stages, such as entry, familiarization, companionship, courtship, growing of personal understanding, confrontational personal difference, closer romance, matrimony, confrontation with the natural aspects of pairings, the perspectives of parenthood, the growing trial, early experience of first encounter with an opportune blessing, or otherwise. And similarly, the seeing of the life grow and the family grow with time, and the changing of the responsibilities in their parenthood, and the changing of their awarenesses within their new life statuses. And on to the desert, and on to the praying of, on to the challenge of depletion of time offered to partner in romance, and designation onto family and community. And the seeing of, and the furtherance of the rest of the description that had already been talked about, into the phases of encountering familial upbringing, the relevant emotive states through all of them, emotive effects through all of them. Not to say that all of these things but all of those emotive states ought to be made aware of in the reading that line, but more so to note the types of prominent transiences that would go into such encounter. There's the transition of the happier aspects of life into its different shades, the transition of the more challenging aspects of life through its stages, and the effect and the overall peace had by the life, by the living, through their goings of it, in their varied aspects of experiencing. Trusting back thither where the sun is silent. And the narrator is noting themselves being taken to a complete position of either paradigmal confrontation with their self-perspective or existential perspectives on the happier matters, the withholdance of experience, of sensibility, of sense, the diminishing, quieting of sensory experience to hollow peacefulness. Motive experience, more possibly onto a hollow sense of peacefulness, or similarly confrontation with challenge to a point of paradigmal existential, paradigmal confrontation, total sense of complete diminishment of any venue to build or contribute, or nurture or support, or proactively engage with or have a presence that they would describe as meaningful, with relevance to general, with more general relevance to challenges as they are. He notes the sun being silent rather than the sun being gone as an indication that it still maintains a sense of presence and awareness that it is there. But through his, rather than be through developed consolidation of through experiencing, or and be internal sense, maybe whether it be coming from a more doctrinal sense of peace or internal contentment or placement forth transience of existence. And a statement that, and noting that those aspects were ascribable to him, but yet still felt the significance of the effect, meaning that their awareness and sight of a relief was not unimaginable or imperceptible, or a respite to situation, or some venue for offerings of improvement was not imperceptible or thought to be incomplete, or that and that despite its perceptibility was of significantly diminished to no effect of improvement on standing, on their ability to process and handle with the taskings to describe relevant capacitation. Or the encounterings or experiences. While I was rushing down to the lowland, before mine eyes did one present himself, who seemed from long continued silence hoarse. Long continued silence speaks two tones, means they're in a state of greatly influencing, or in a state of high potentiality for significant action. They're greatly longing for outcry, and almost that are ready to engage in a manner that would be spontaneously affecting or differentiatedly affecting and influencing as compared to the prior circumstance, as well as an offerance of understanding of long continued silence, of course, being further sense of depletion onto a greater despondence, to which their capacities even to the sight of the sun, sight of more existentially uplifting aspects or perspectives had faded in their effectiveness on them. The writers stating themselves, his is stating themselves as being at 2 points. The writer is stating themselves as witness. The narrator is either stating that they literally encountered someone, or that they were perceiving of themselves in two ways, and two means by which they could be furtherant, that their action and their path could continue forth, through which they viewed themselves as nearing and almost challenged by the hoarseness and tired and fadingness or despondence from the silence or challenge or unaffectingness. And seeing as themselves as being depleted, diminished, weakened, and faded, yet still nearing, still with some capacity for being nearing or driven to some enactment of a capacity toward significant effectiveness. He encountered of himself, so is carried to rest. While I was rushing downward to lowland, he encountered this of himself whilst experiencing through despondence or negotiating with the carriance of himself to rest and retire, or relaxation of action onto motivation, onto growings of one's hopes, or companionship or connection with companion alike. And the sensing of a glimmer of hope there, and seeing that, if one was referencing more, understanding more, before mine eyes did one present himself, a glimmer of hope, or a challenge unto mercy, whether it be in a state of confrontation with partner, or be in a state of diminishment of connection with partner, more passively depressedly. In which more passively depressedly would have been referring to an opportunity to re-establish an action towards a peaceful state, rather than to uplift, but to find quiet shelter with each other through moments of through alignment of moments of weather and state, and be more proactive and respitance from conflict with partner. So foreseeing of an opportune chance to gain awareness of means by which an occurrence of or an enlightenment onto an available change within themselves that could be taken, or guidance onto change available, or pathing onto a pathing, offerance of pathing onto enabling of action that would alleviate partner of conflicted state of inconfliction. Requiem. Requiem's gate. Chord. Indeed. Right. Inferno Canto 1. Literary analysis of stanzas. Canto 1 stanzas 19 to 22.